Hello, I'm Allie, and I'm here to tell you how I took my group one-to-many offer that was cohort-based and turned it into an evergreen offer that still had the same high-touch support that was really important to me in the cohort-based, but I made it evergreen and it's now more sustainable and successful for me, as well as it serves my students so much better and they're getting way better results from it. So a little bit of context about who I am and what this program is so that it kind of makes sense in your brain when I'm taking you through it. So I'm a data-backed marketing strategist, and for the last 6 years, I've done for you one-to-one building out Google Analytics tracking, dashboards, lead tracking systems, ways for businesses to track and measure their marketing so that they can make the best who should I hire, what should I invest my time and money in, what should I do next for my marketing to grow scale, to make it more effective, profitable, etc. And I knew that there were a lot of really smart business owners out there that wanted to be able to set this up themselves, wanted to understand how it works, or wanted a more accessible price point for them to get the full data tracking system set up without needing to pay me thousands of dollars to do it for them. So I built my framework and my systems and my templates into a group program that walked them through setting it up together. And it went really well. I launched this in early 2024. I ran it in cohorts where we'd have weekly calls, and it was kind of over 8 weeks that each week they'd tackle one little bitty piece of it, and at the end they'd have a full tracking system. We'd have audited it together, and they'd walk away knowing exactly what's working, what's not, and where to focus their time and money next. But going from a one-to-one service to a one-to-many service wasn't the scalable magic that a lot of the celebrity entrepreneurs would have you believe, because it still took so much work from me and so much support from me to get them there. And it came down to how my program was structured and the way that I was offering support that was still having me as the bottleneck in the whole process. And it wasn't serving my students as well as I really wanted it to. So let's look at the numbers. It was an 8-week-long cohort. Each week there were things that they needed to do. A big gap with that was, sometimes they'd have the time that week to do the stuff and sometimes they didn't. And they didn't need to do stuff every single week. But, when people would start to fall behind, I find that they just give up when they got too far behind. It felt like they needed to follow my specific schedule, and it was very rigid in order for them to find success. I was offering 2 hours of weekly calls as well as Slack support. This ended up taking 4 to 5 hours of my time, and the cohorts that I was doing, I was starting with small cohorts because I didn't want to overwhelm myself, with 4 to 6 people. I figured as I got better, I could probably get this up to 8, maybe 10 people. Probably 8 would have been my safe number, but then it would have taken essentially a full day of my time when it came down to the calls and the support and Slack that I was giving, which is fine. That's still a profitable thing, but I was capped at that. And then about 30% of my students that came through actually completed the entire program and got the desired result that I wanted for them and they signed up for, which unfortunately is actually well above the average completion rate when we look at the online course industry standards. But there's a lot of really shit courses out there that I hold myself to a much higher standard. I was hoping for at least 50%, if not 60 or to 70. So this was way lower than I wanted it to be. The other thing that I kind of struggled with is because I only enrolled it 2 times per year, if people came to me outside of those launch periods or when I was coming up on when I knew I was going to launch, I had a wait list that they would join, but if people needed it and they needed it now, I didn't really have another option for them, and I lost some really good leads because they went somewhere else or they found some other way to get what they needed. So this worked kinda, but it wasn't sustainable for my students or for me. So I reworked it. What was really important to me is that I wanted people to be able to join at any time. I wanted them to be able to progress at their own pace so they weren't stuck into my rigid idea of what they should do. I wanted systems that supported different learning styles. So if they wanted to binge it and get it done really fast, they could. If they wanted to tackle it whenever they had the time, I wanted that to be there for them. And I really wanted to keep the human touch and the high level of support because this is a technical and hard thing. And I know that it can be overwhelming for people. And sometimes it's just the simplest little things. And I wanted to be able to be there for them to pull them through it. So after reworking everything, and I'll walk you through how I did it, But these are the numbers that I'm looking at now. So now I have a self-paced evergreen program. People can enroll at any time. I have found with the people that have come through, about 40% of them are completing it in 2 to 4 weeks. So they're actually completing it faster because they can, and the support is there for them to be able to do that. And then about 20% of them are completing it in 8 to 9 weeks. So still in the same amount of time, or maybe a little bit longer. But overall, my completion rate with those two is about 60%. So that is doubled from what it was before. I'm also spending way less time in calls and with support because of how I structured the program. It's easier for people to do, so they need less of me. And the way that the support works is way more streamlined and easier for me to tackle. And then I don't have any capacity limit. So with the amount of time that I was spending, which was less than in a cohort, I actually had almost double the number of people in the program than I did in any cohort that I ran. So there really aren't capacity limits. If, I were to have 100 people, then I need some co-coaches to help with support tickets and whatnot. But that's a way easier hire for me than having somebody run cohorts. One of the other bonuses here is I was actually able to reduce the amount of time that I spent in live calls in half, which take a lot of my energetic capacity. I love them. I love being there with my students, but if I have a 2-hour group call, there isn't much strategic or creative work that I can do for the rest of the day. It just takes a lot out of me. So I'm not doing as many of those every single month, and most of the support that I'm giving is through the support ticketing portal, which is way easier for me capacity-wise. Plus, with that level of support, I can accommodate across all time zones because you actually can get the full results of the program, get full support without ever showing up to a live group call if you don't want to. So let's run through the key changes that I made to make this shift happen. The 3 big shifts that I made is I really reworked my curriculum so that it was simpler and more actionable. And I'll walk you through exactly what that looks like because I know that's vague. The second thing that I did is I tracked completion milestones and introduced automated nudges to keep people on track or to notify me if somebody was falling off. And then the third was designing flexible human support. So what specifically did I do to make my curriculum more simple and actionable? First, I made the individual lessons or trainings way shorter. Instead of them being, 15-minute, 20-minute lessons of kind of taking them through the process, each individual lesson sometimes is only 1 or 2 minutes. Sometimes it's 3, 5, 7 minutes. But I tried to keep everything within those really small actionable timelines so they can watch a couple minutes and then take a specific action. So here's a screenshot of in my kind of setting up Google Analytics module, where if you look closely, you can see that it's the first one is 1 minute and 19 seconds. The second one is a 7-minute because, we're doing a little bit more. The third video is 2 minutes long. And so what I found is that this helps get the momentum going, that they can kind of binge and progress through really quickly. And it's structured in a way that it's okay, watch this small thing, go do this small thing. Now watch this next small thing, do this next small thing. It just helped them progress a lot quicker and easier. Especially the more complex the thing that you want them to do is, the shorter the video should be. Break it down into even tinier, smaller steps. And then each video should lead them to an action item. So something, again, that they can build that momentum and snowball their progression through the program. And then make it super crystal clear the path that you want them to follow. I love a good choose your own adventure vibe, but if people need to make so many choices, often they panic and leave. So I made it super clear when somebody joins the program, instead of them opening up the course portal and there's a whole bunch of modules that they can do, they open it up. It says start here. They go through that. It then says, great, now go to your next one. I've made it super clear where I want them to begin and where I want them to go next. So the next thing that I did is I automated their progress tracking. And not only am I tracking it on my end so I can see where people are in the program, I can see maybe where people are getting stuck. After each milestone, they fill out a form. And then it tells them exactly, cool, you just completed this thing. Here's where you are in your progress. Here's where I want you to go next. And then there's a little hype message to get them excited about what they're unlocking in the next module so that hopefully they're more likely to get started right away because they're cool, I want that. So I do this by them just filling out a form, and that logs in my program hub that I keep in Airtable, which I love Airtable and I think it's the best way to host this. But if you're not an Airtable person, you could track this in many different ways. But it's crystal clear where they're at, what they've completed, and what I want them to do next. Then, because I know how long it typically takes people to complete or how long I want them to complete it in, if somebody has been in the program for 2 weeks and they haven't completed any of these progress milestones, I have an automation that sends them an email that says, hey, just checking in, how are things going? I keep it really low pressure and just kind of curious focused versus being, why aren't you on track? Because, life happens, things happen. But if people know that you care and that you want them to complete it, I've found that they are way more likely to actually do the work. I've had pretty much every single one of these that gets sent out, I get a response to it. Sometimes life happens, sometimes things came up, and I typically see them start to make progress later that week or the following week when they've been dormant for a little bit of time. So I just have really strategic, I expect people to have at least one module done within 2 weeks. If not, they get a reminder. I expect them to have at least 2 done by the end of a month. If not, they get a reminder, etc., etc. And then the last piece here is flexible human support. And honestly, this is probably the most important one that really changed things for me. This really unlocked people getting results easier and quicker in my program. Live group calls seem to be something built into most programs, and I love them and they work for some people, but they don't work for all learners. And especially when we talk about time zones and people getting busy, they're not always the most supportive way for us to collaborate with our students. So I kept some of them because I know that people like them for accountability and for some back and forth discussion or really getting unstuck from something, they can be fantastic. But I moved the support priority over to an asynchronous support portal, which again, I do in Airtable. All my stuff is in Airtable. I love it. I learned all that from Ashley at Systems Over Stress. If you want to learn Airtable, she's your gal. But going from Slack to asynchronous support in some sort of portal for me really helped people use it more, because I found that in Slack, people weren't always asking questions because they thought other people were reading their questions, and the support portal feels and is a little bit more private. I do have an option where they can say, yeah, this can be shared in the public FAQ database, so they can provide that, but they don't necessarily need to. And then the other key to this is I would give them a response within 24 to 48 hours. I promise 72 hours, but I pretty much carve out a half an hour in my afternoon of every single day where I just go through and I clear out support tickets. I can get into a little bit of a zone with them. I find them really quick and easy for me to go through. Sometimes there are questions that have been asked before, so an FAQ from a last one can just be copied and pasted over or referenced. But the key here is that when somebody hits a roadblock in our programs, the faster we can get them unstuck, the better. If they need to wait for the next group call, or if they're hesitating to put a question in Slack because they feel like they might be judged for it, whether that's true or not, the faster we can get them unstuck, the better. And this support portal has been by far the easiest way for me to support folks. The other thing that would probably be really helpful in here that I'm working on building in the next couple of months is some level of AI support as well, that obviously lots of groups are bringing in and can definitely help people get unstuck quicker. So if you have a group program or a one-to-many offer, or you're thinking of starting one in the next little bit, I hope you can take some of these learnings and apply it to build a sustainable and profitable program for you. If you have any questions at all, connect with me on Instagram or Threads at Akari Digital. I'm more than happy to gab away in the DMs with you to chat about how some of this might apply to your business and your programs. Thank you so much, Jess, for having me.